Hi, welcome to this video, which is about a question that's come in from somebody on LinkedIn. And similar to last time, where there were a number of videos, I'm also going to spread this one across a couple of videos, because we had a little bit of back and forth on it in our messages, and it really feels important to give both parts the space that they really deserve. So today we're going to look at the very original question, which was, is it possible to get enlightened in this lifetime, and how? And so we began our conversation in our messages around, well, let's just be really clear what we're meaning by becoming enlightened, and to differentiate between awakening and enlightenment, which isn't something everybody does. So not everybody makes this distinction, but it's something which occurred to me in 2021 after I'd had my full recognition of who we are. There just was this drop in of clarity of the distinction of awakening as the recognition of our essential nature, and enlightenment as the clearing up of our psychological conditioning. And when I saw that distinction, it made so much sense of so much of my exploration. It helped me see which coaches and guides were doing more awakening and which coaches and guides were doing more enlightenment. It also had me see how both are completely supportive of each other and help each. The more we enlighten, the more we feel that awakened nature of ourselves. The more we feel the awakened nature of ourselves, the more easy it is to enlighten. So to me, it was super helpful to make that distinction. And it's the basis of why the book there in the background, there's the book, there's the journal. It's difficult with a mirror video going on. That's why Sarah Priestley and I have written a book called The Complete Book of Awakening, and why our second book is going to be The Complete Book of Enlightenment, because it also made sense to Sarah, that distinction, that there's there's one very simple thing we're doing in awakening, and there's a myriad of stuff going on in enlightenment. So they're quite different explorations with different purposes, really. And so hence my response is that yes, we can awaken in this lifetime. Absolutely, we can recognize that essential nature. We can fall out of the belief of being a separate person, a separate self. And enlightenment, I don't know, because enlightenment being the clearing up of our psychology, so far that's an ongoing process for me. Now, I fully imagine that there are people on this planet who are fully enlightened, but it is an imagination. I don't know for sure. I've not met anybody who's ever said that to me. And I've heard teachers, one of whom I respect deeply, Rupert Spira, say that, yeah, enlightenment is like ongoing. That's the work of our lifetime. So who knows? I don't know. But yes, certainly it looks to me like awakening is absolutely feasible in this lifetime. And enlightenment looks like an ongoing process, an ongoing clearing up of the psychological and the physiological, the energetic, the emotional, all the conditioning that has been collected, and which is what creates the resistance to life. All of that seems to be an ongoing process. But all the easier to do this once we have awakened. Because in the recognition of our essential nature, which is awakening, as I define it, as Sarah Priestley defines it, in the recognition of our essential nature, we now know who we really are. We know that we are this indivisible, infinite, eternal awareness. We are not just this body. We are not a separate self. We're not alone in this scary world fighting for our survival. Not really, not at the deepest level. And in that recognition, the identification as who we really are, instead of identifying as a separate self and a separate body-mind, that recognition shifts our experience of all the conditioning, the psychological, the emotional, the physical. Our relationship completely shifts, because now, rather than being completely lost and identified in with it, in awakening, we now know who we are. I know who I am. And now I can see much more clearly, there's much more space and love and capacity and welcoming to be with all the psychological. And it's that welcoming space which allows enlightenment to happen with more ease. Because previously, when I believe I'm this separate self, there's this belief that I must hold on to this conditioning. Somehow, even though I suffer in it, somehow I think that this is essential to who I am, and therefore I must hold on to it. And I must push away anything that potentially would impact this conditioning which I think I am. And so everything gets more spacious, everything gets easier, everything gets lighter. But let's go back to the original question for a moment. So if we were to switch the word and say, is it possible to awaken in this lifetime, and how? So I've already said, yes, it's possible to awaken in this lifetime. In terms of the how, I would obviously say buy my book. So people have genuinely shared that mine and Sarah's book is something they've never read in this genre before. They've never seen it laid out like that. They've never seen it curated like that. They've never experienced it so practically as it is in that book. Because what we do in that book is take you through step by step of recognizing who you really are, of recognizing what is not essential to you, what is not who you really are. It's here, it's happening, but it's not your essential nature. And then we bring that back together to show that there's not really a separate what I'm not and what I am. It's really all one thing appearing as all of this. And that to me is the walking that path in some form, whether it's with our book, whether it's with a coach or a guide or a teacher, that journey and that the recognition of both who I essentially am as well as what is not essential to me is the shift in the identification that I just talked about. It is that shift into, well, now I know who I really am. And actually the qualities of who I really am is everything I've been looking for in the world. And so now I see that what is not essential to me isn't excluded, it's not denied, it's not dismissed, it's not thrown away. But now that I see that's not who I really am, I don't need to secure myself in this stuff anymore. I am all the security I've ever been looking for. And so now I can be with all of this foreground experience of life and psychology and emotions, and it's all okay. And as I said before, then that is what supports the enlightenment process, because now I am my infinite, abundant, spacious self, knowingly, because you've actually never not been that, but I'm now knowingly that space of awareness. And that now creates the capacity to be with all these hurts and confusions and collected stories and ideas and physical responses. I can now be with all of that much more lovingly. And that is what then supports the enlightenment process. In fact, that is the enlightenment process. There are all sorts of different ways that we can access that enlightenment, all sorts of doorways in. But fundamentally, enlightenment is the loving of all of that conditioning, all of that confusion that's been collected and held in the system, in order that it may move again, in order that it may flow again, in order that it may return to its natural state of movement. So is awakening possible in this lifetime? Yes. How? By recognizing what is most essential to you, by recognizing what is not essential, and by seeing that all of that is one thing. As I say, the book is super helpful in that respect. Can I become enlightened in this lifetime? I don't know. Certainly enlightening is seems to be the natural progression. Certainly once we've had an awakening, enlightenment can't help but happen. And it will happen with greater and greater ease the more we are identified with who we are rather than being identified with what we're not. Essentially, the more we've awakened. So I'll leave this one here for today. I'd love to hear your subsequent questions that have arisen from this. And much love to you. And I'll see you again in the next video where we'll continue this conversation a bit more. Much love.